Oh man, it was 5:59, and lucky for me, Chris sent me a message. Said 1 minute. I was deep into two different fights on Facebook, so I was completely immersed in combat, digital combat, when Chris said 1 minute. And I'm like, oh, I think he's referring to the podcast. Oh, I can get so lost in the ambiance of combat. Hi, Lisa. Welcome home. Hope you had a nice trip. Hi, Chris. And thanks for the heads up. That was helpful. Hi, Kathy. Yes, yes. It's 6:01 p.m. in Dallas, Texas. It's January 6th, 2021. Big day today. Let me tell you about today. So, listen, today was a big day. Today's the day that the joint session of Congress gets together and accepts the Electoral College vote and makes the next president, if there's an next president, official, right? And then that person gets inaugurated on January 20th of this year, and we move forward. Hi, Jenny. Hi, Mark and Ann and Tony. Welcome. Nice to see you all. So, yeah. So I seem quite happy. Well, I'm not unhappy. I so it's good. I want to go further. So Kathy, my friend Kathy Peterson, she wrote me. She was pretty upset about what she was seeing. She said she wasn't going to be able to listen to tonight's podcast, and because she was upset. And I said, yeah, I understand. You know, and she said something about the dogs she wasn't surprised by the actions at the Capitol. She was surprised that there was nobody guarding the Capitol. That what was going on. And so she said, theme for tonight: who let the dogs out? And so I posted, who let the dogs out? Trump let the dogs out. So listen, I I'm kind of good mood because of two things. Um, I anticipated. I would have been surprised if there hadn't been trouble today. I mean that's something that's just been building. I mean, there was no way. In my mind, there was no way today was going to happen without any violence. Whether counter protesters showed up or not, I was solid that there'd be violence. I was out walking for a couple hours. I went and walked 4 miles, and Ricky texted me just as I got home and said, "OMG," and I'm like, "OMG, something must be going on." So I tuned in, and I saw what everybody else saw. I saw the Capitol being overrun, and I will tell you, hi Kathy, thanks for showing up. Yeah, hi Leonard. So listen. So I sit down and I put on Fox News, and there's a little anecdote about my afternoon, okay? And I'm listening to Fox News because I felt like if anybody was going to put the worst spin on it in terms of being a liberal, it would be Fox. And I listen to Fox because I like to know what's going on the other side. Remember, I'm a trial lawyer uh, uh, by trade. And if a trial lawyer doesn't know the other side's theory of the case, you can't win. So, and Chris Wallace came on. There were like 4 or 5 people talking. You couldn't see who they were. You could only hear their voices. And Chris Wallace said, where are the Capitol Police? How did they let this happen? And I thought, oh, we're going to throw the police under the bus. Now, that's an interesting spin. Usually we spin it that the protesters are the bad people and the police are the victims. So, I dismissed it. Well, time, tick, tock, tick, tock. I'm waiting. I'm figuring reinforcements are on the way. There's trouble. The cops, maybe they didn't have a significant presence initially, but they're ready. I saw the mayor of Washington, D.C. interviewed this morning. She was I thought she was ready. Okay, I was wrong. So after about a half hour, I'm like, yeah, I'm with Chris Wallace. Well, I'm not the only one. As the afternoon wore on, so did all the other stations say, where was the breakdown? They even brought in former chiefs of police, one of the Capitol Police by the name of Terrence Gaynor, who said, wow, this is the last thing you allow to happen. You don't breach the Capitol. He was talking, he was being interviewed. And then they interviewed a former Washington, D.C. police chief. And he's like, wow, what's going on? And they were all saying, where are the police? And then you see shots of one of the chambers, and I don't know which chamber. I've never been to the Capitol. And there were people walking around and rifling papers and doing stuff. And, there were no police in the room. There were about 12 people walking around taking pictures. And I'm like, 12 people. I mean, I get that you had trouble at the front door. There were thousands of people, but we're inside the rotunda. We're inside the chambers. Where are the police? Inconceivable to me. So, listen, Ann says, can't wait to hear your take on today's events. Here's my take. This was part of the action and the plan that was anticipated. There is not a minutia, a single bit of doubt in my mind that this is exactly what Trump hoped would happen. He didn't plan it, so to speak. It's what he hoped for, because he wanted a demonstration of people who love him so much, they care for him so much, they adore him, that they would do anything to protect him and protect his presidency. So, of course, one of the things you can do is go disrupt the January 6th acceptance of the electoral vote. That was just a logical sequence of events. And it was encouraged. Even Fox commentators, one after another, are saying Trump did this. He put it in motion and did nothing to stop it. And as to who let the dogs out, okay, the song is not really relevant, okay? So Trump unleashed the dogs, okay? And then he held back the dog catchers. We now know from various reports that the National Guard, because it's Washington, D.C., they do not respond to the mayor, were repeatedly being requested to intervene. 500 National Guardsmen were standing by, and they didn't intervene until well after the point of no return. And they're now saying that nobody with authority from Trump down gave them the authorization to intervene, that they were ready, willing, and able to step in and help assist the Capitol Police. Let's talk about the Capitol Police. Clearly, Capitol Police have years of experience with protesters. Absolutely, probably the most experienced police force, Washington, D.C., and the Capitol Police. Capitol Police, if I got this right, I may be using wrong terms, Capitol Police are the ones who protect the Capitol and the personnel, and they have their own police force. Most closely associated possibly with the Secret Service, which also has uniformed police at the White House at all times. Okay, so there are Secret Service agents, and they are dressed in suits or plain clothes. They accompany various officials to various tasks. Okay, and then there is the uniformed Secret Service, and they are at the gate to the White House. They are also part of a department that investigates counterfeiting and some other stuff, right? Okay, so there's two police departments right there. And neither of them rose to the challenge. And as a result, I don't know, I think as a result, this woman was killed by a law enforcement officer. We don't know who and we're not sure why yet, but the woman died. She was shot, and everybody here knows what happened today. Don't let me forget. I want to summarize. What happened today was historical, absolutely historical, of on a level, but albeit completely different, of 9/11. 9/11 was an attack of American soil for almost the first time, really, because of the ocean, where we were attacked on our soil by outside forces. Okay? Today, first time in your lifetime, the capital on the government of the United States at its very heartbeat was attacked by American citizens. It's just historical. So if I seem happy, it's because, my God, I just witnessed this most incredible event. Which, why would I be upbeat about it? Because it was just what I expected. It was sort of like, we're getting around to what I've been saying is going to happen. So I felt a little bit of vindication. I apologize for that I keep saying there's a fucking coup going on. And these people were part of the planned coup. They didn't know they were part of a planned coup. They've been groomed for it for months. Do I think Trump wanted martial law? I don't think he cares one way or the other about martial law. I think he only wants to retain the presidency. I think he only wanted a conflict because of ego. Martial law doesn't help his ego. There's nothing. There's no payoff in that. The payoff for Trump was to see these people holding his sign, calling him Jesus, and attacking the Capitol because these are people that love him so much they would do anything up to and including attacking Congress, a joint session of Congress. I think he liked that a lot. I think that fed into that worst core, and it's his core of him. I think that's part of the sickness of what America's experiencing now. The dogs were already out. They selected him as their leader. He needs to go sooner. On a happier note, Ken, Happy New Year. It'll really start on January 20th. And just, the dogs, in my opinion, were not out. The dogs have been in dog houses. The white supremacists, the xenophobics, these almost 300 hate groups which are spread out around the United States and are active, have not been out. They have been in their dog houses until recently, 4 years ago, when they heard the dog whistle. That's my belief. Not saying you're wrong. That he was selected as their leader, he is their leader. He talks their talk, right? What does this tell actual terrorists about our security? Well, the thing about actual terrorists is what they should learn from this is they should learn to harness domestic terrorists in the form of like Trump supporters and use them as cover to storm the Bastille, so to speak. This was not uncommon during the days of rage in Chicago when SDS, which apparently had been infiltrated by Russian infiltrators and FBI instigators, and they encouraged these Students for a Democratic Society to commit these violent acts during the days of rage in order to disrupt what was going on in the United States. There were provocateurs. So if I was an actual terrorist, I would focus right now on cultivating provocateurs, infiltrating Trump supporters, and using them to clash and create additional instability. Chris says he only wants his immunity. I don't think so. I don't think so. Um, just my opinion again. I think he's getting his rocks off watching people love him and admire him. I think I don't think he's shrewd enough to be worried about his immunity at the moment. I mean, he's probably worried about immunity. Don't get me wrong. On one side, there's an anxiety about immunity because when he loses the presidency, he loses immunity. But on the other side, there's a massive amount of ego engaged in this thing. A massive amount of ego. You know, he spent 90 minutes talking to this crowd. 90 minutes. Nobody comes out and talks for 90 minutes at a rally like this, right? You have to have a massive ego to believe that thousands of people want to listen to you for 90 minutes. I'd stop at 45. I'm surprised when you're here at 46. I'm here when you're surprised at 30, right? Okay? So he clearly does not want to face criminal charges. I'll give you that. But I don't believe what happened today was about immunity. I believe it's about ego completely. I believe his niece, Mary Trump, was right, that he's a psychopath. She said he wouldn't go quietly in tonight. She said he'd never concede. I agreed with her from day one. She and I on the same page, man. So all I'm saying is this was so obvious, to me anyways. This was the logical unfolding of this manifestation of hostility that was being cultivated by the President of the United States in order to assuage his ego and ultimately, in the grimmest of hopes, that he could stop the Biden presidency. I've been saying for days, and you've been hearing me for days say, what was going on a daily basis, whether it was in the courts, whether it was in this plan for today, all these machinations were not simply political showboating. Cruz, Halsey, all these people were actually participating in an attempted coup of the United States of America. I bet every fucking dime I got that that was the sole intention. I keep hearing about people grandstanding. You know, they tried to stop the legitimate election of Biden and Harris by any means necessary. They filed 50 lawsuits or more, and they attempted to disrupt the legality in Georgia and then again in the Congress. No stone was left unturned. That's not grandstanding. They grandstanded many times. They've grandstanded. There was no more to be gained from grandstanding. What was to be gained was the retention of power, because power corrupts. And once Trump tasted the power, listen, Biden says it very well. Why does he hang on to a job he doesn't want to do anyways? Nobody who has the intellect that I would, that I would respect, can look at the last 4 years and tell me this guy was working. He was golfing. He wasn't reading security reports. He wasn't doing his homework on any single subject. He had a couple of crazy people that surrounded him. They helped him craft these crazy ideas, and then he ordered them, okay? This was retention of power. This was, I'm not ready to go, okay? So I think he did everything he could. Started with calling the dogs out 4.5 years ago, and you saw it culminated today, and it was a wonder to observe. It was almost, not theatrical. It was almost a ballet to somebody like me who has been watching this whole thing from my point of view and watching it unfold and saying, wow. You know, I mean, there were guys on window washing scaffold. They took the scaffold used by the window washers at the Capitol. They went up to the second floor and smashed windows. I mean, you're not going to see that very often in your lifetime. If you live another, double whatever your life is, for me, 68, double it. I wouldn't see that again. I might see it in the next couple of days. There might be some more. But please, believe me, you ain't seeing people smash windows and jump through. And if you don't think this wasn't an intentional act, if you think this was just people got carried away, then why were so many of the people dressed in military garb, carrying backpacks, had on riot helmets and riot shields? Some were carrying riot shields. Man, this was the plan. This was going to go down. Nothing was going to stop it, but it could have been possibly mitigated by the presence, a significant police presence, but somebody didn't want the police to intervene too quickly. Somebody or somebodies wanted this to go down the way it did. Maybe they didn't plan for the Capitol to get overrun, but they sure as shit knew there'd be violence. Come on. Come on. Fox News said they knew there was probably going to be violence today. Fox News, not MSNBC, not CNN. So this all happened just the way it was supposed to happen. And I don't believe I don't believe there's anything about it. I mean, there are ancillary objectives, such as Chris says, immunity, he's their leader or whatever it is. No, that's just ancillary. This was a grab for the power inherent in being the president of the United States of America, the single most powerful person on the planet, based upon the military might that you have access to and the number of affluent persons that you can command. Okay? Shoot. Dudes, man, he tasted that. He couldn't give it up. I mean, he's going golfing all the time, and we're paying for it. He's never had it so good. He's got Mar-a-Lago. He's got the Trump Towers. This man's been living large on my dime. And he's been kicking us in the teeth repeatedly. So I'm not too distressed, because what happens is, in my whatever it is, I felt today was necessary because we needed to have this behavior illuminated on national TV. People had to see those people who were marginal, who maybe liked Trump, but they needed to see that when these dogs were unleashed, when they came out and they started biting, that there was no controlling them, that the president really didn't have any control. He had fed them, or maybe he starved them. I don't know how you want to look at it. He had angry dogs, and he knew he had them, and he did it on purpose. And there was this had to happen. It had to happen. It's better it happened at the Capitol on a day like today, when Congress was in session and there's no sliding under a rock, which Cruz will do. I promise you, before this day is over, Cruz will be talking to you from underneath a rock. Okay? There's no sliding under a rock and trying to argue two sides. Two sides. Okay? I have a friend, Paul. I don't know if he's listening. Paul's out of his fucking mind. Okay? I like Paul. But he's telling you it was Antifa undercover. Thousands of Antifa, and they were doing this. That's how sick it is. It is sick. It is a sickness, a soul sickness. And somebody found a way to harness this soul sickness. And I personally needed it to be brought out into the light in its full glory, so that at some point somebody says, stop. Somebody has to say to the FBI, put a stop to these Proud Boys. Get in there and find out what they're going to do. Get into all these hate groups. Cut them off at the pass. before they have ammonium nitrate trucks parked outside another federal building, blow up 163 people, of which dozens could be children. It's got to stop. But you can't stop it if you don't believe it, if you don't know what they're capable of. Well, now you know. They're more than happy to break into the capital of the United States of America, calling themselves patriots. They're defending the Constitution. They're defending God. They're defending Trump. They are unleashed. Even now, when I turn off the TV to come here, the riot police had simply pushed them back, used some tear gas, not a lot, pushed them back simply off the grounds. Had this been a group of black protesters, there would be dozens bleeding from the head. They would have been knocked about with billy clubs. They'd be gassed. Make no mistake about it. If you think for one fucking second that 1,000 black people could have stormed the Capitol and got that response, then you go stick your head so far up your ass, I don't have to listen to you. Because it's despicable, right? Now, I have a lot of friends. You don't like what I say. You think I'm off the wall. You think that somehow I am unable to or unwilling to look at the left and see their, their failings, their propensity for violence. I know the left quite well. I'm keenly aware. I'm more than happy to criticize the left. The left has never attacked the Capitol. There were some Puerto Rican terrorists who wanted to free Puerto Rico back in the 50s. They attacked and shot some Congress people, but you don't see us marching on the Capitol, okay? You don't see us demanding. So we survived 4 years of Trump. You told us to survive. We survived. We made it. And we got our chance to vote, and we did it, and he's out. Respect me, motherfucker. Respect my vote, because you ain't taking my vote away. Fuck no. Just my sentiments, you know what I'm saying? I do not comprehend why this was not prevented. Oh, yes, I do. They were not black. It's not just that they were not black. It's not just that they were white. It's that this had to happen. Trump needed this demonstration of passion for his presidency in order to yet convince the country, if he could, he wanted this country to be convinced that he is the only one who should be in charge. He needed this demonstration as part of a planned attack on the government because he was trying to threaten the Georgian election people. He tried to threaten Pennsylvania people. He did everything he could. He sued, his lawyers sued in over 50 freaking courts, man. He was not going quietly. And if you look where we are, it's January 6th. What choice did he have but to hope for a riot like this? This was perfect. This was anticipatable, and it was not preventable. It was not preventable because the only person that could really have prevented it had no investment in preventing it. Okay? You dig what I'm saying? Well, thank you, Becky. If the protesters were people of color, they'd all be shot down like Kent State to the 100th power. I wouldn't argue with you, Louise. I don't think they'd have been shot down, but they'd have been beat pretty bad. I think that race is a part of Washington politics, no doubt. I think the Capitol Police are probably predominantly white, but I don't know. So I'm not going to make that accusation. I think that, right, yes. So as Ann points out, starting this morning when CNN went out there to take some pan shots and talk to their reporter on the scene, and she walked through the crowd, nobody was wearing masks. There'll be a super spreader event. This was a super spreader event. But understand, okay, they may land up subsequently, ultimately hurting themselves. That is, yet again, it's all ancillary, man. It is all ancillary. If 10,000 black people showed up to support Trump, they would have been immune from an attack by the Capitol Police. If 10,000, 20,000 black persons, Hispanic persons had showed up carrying Pence and Trump signs or Trump signs alone, they would have been immune from an attack by the Capitol Police until the Capitol had already been broken into. Do you understand what I'm saying? He needed this attack as part of the attempt to retain power. And in order to do it, it was one of several demonstrations of power and manipulation to convince you that we won't be safe unless he's retained in office. They want the liberals scared, and they want the right to feel hostile and angry. Okay? Oh, Tony, there were was the woman protest who shot and killed a Caucasian? I don't know. If you're watching the news, Louise, you know better than I do. I would guess she's a Caucasian because she was with this group. So I'm watching Fox News. Thank you, Debbie. On Fox News, I'm watching, and one of the guys is down at the Capitol, and Blacks for Trump showed up. They had some little cheap little signs that they put on with magic marker, and they go right at this reporter, and they're yelling at him, and he's trying to ignore them. And then they said, back at Fox headquarters, ask them if they know what's going on at the Capitol. Like, do you understand the violence and the attack that's going on, right? And so they did. He did. And they just were yelling at him. I mean, it was nonsensical yelling. You know, there was a white woman with them, and she said, "What are you talking about?" You know, it wasn't a color thing today. I want to make that very clear. You know, ultimately clear. This was about, are you with me or against me? Are you with me or against me? Trump has with me or against me. He has nothing else. He knows nothing else. And it's real. And the reason that Joe Biden is going to be president, the absolute reason that Joe Biden will be president, the one primary reason is enough people were sick of listening to Trump and his rhetoric. He could have had another 4 years. All he had to do was shut up and act like a human being. But so many people discovered. So Biden did not win the Democratic election, the Democratic candidacy to the presidency because of his charisma or whatever. The difference between the votes that Trump got and the votes that Biden got are at minimum the votes that Trump lost because he was incapable of diminishing the rhetoric of hate. He was so hateful that there were enough people that just didn't want it anymore that wanted him out. And they were willing to go along with a Biden presidency, and that includes Stephen Schmidt, Rick Wilson, the whole Lincoln Project. It's the Bush staff that came and got together, coalesced. It's the people in Georgia that just voted for 2 Democrats, not because they wanted 2 Democrats, but because those 2 Republican senators that were running were aligning themselves with Trump. And the people that voted by just the tiniest freaking margin were voting against their alliance with Trump. Trump, through this thing, through his own behavior, he's got 2 sides. You're with me or you're against me. I mean, I'm saying something that's so fucking obvious, right? You all know this. you know. So you could have been 1,000 black pygmies, aborigines from Australia if you'd have showed up with signs lauding Trump. You'd have been safe today until they decided they had to push back. And they decided to push back because even Fox News was asking what's going on. I mean, this was a public relations fiasco for that police department. Do you understand? It was a public relations fiasco of a significant magnitude. They're going to have to answer a lot of questions. You got people in Congress that were laying on the floor, that were covering themselves with the masks. Those masks that they had, those are masks that you use for like a fire. If you have gas, it's not a gas, it's a smoke mask. Those are smoke masks, those clear masks, I'm pretty sure. I mean, I've been around them. So, yeah, right? They locked him out. I saw that. I saw they locked him out of his account. Too little, too late. Goddamn right. I know Rachel pointed that out too. You know what? Everybody's doing too little, too late. That's the story of the Trump presidency and demise, is that Congress is doing too little, too late. That people are pushing back too little, too late. That senators have been are able to be reelected even though they align themselves, right? That Mitch McConnell didn't call out those 12 senators or whatever in advance and say, you're despicable and you will never be rewarded if you do this. Mitch McConnell has a lot of power over his group, right? And the Democrats didn't do anything better. You know, it was so obvious, right? Crazy. It's crazy town. But it's our crazy town. Make no mistake. I get it, man. It's our crazy town. But, you know, I have been asked by Trump supporters. I wasn't asked. I was told by Trump supporters that this showdown today was a legitimate challenge to an illegitimate election. I was told this weeks and weeks ago. I was told this the day after the election, that this was an illegitimate election. And I was told a series of maneuvers which would be attempted. And this was not Mysterioso. This wasn't a guy who was undercover. This was just a Trump supporter who already knew the various techniques and challenges that would be made up to and including today. I don't mean storming the Bastille. I mean this electoral college rejection. Okay? And I looked at him and said, if you believe that, you have nothing to say to me going forward. I said, because if you can sit here and tell me that you believe that the electoral college should be defeated because you don't agree with it, then you're calling for civil war. There's nothing more to say. I will fight back. If you do this, you've declared war on me. I voted for Biden. I won. I'm entitled to the president that I chose because he won, legal, fair and square. I'm entitled to that president. That's the law. You try to take that away, somebody got to intervene. You know, I don't know how many different resources there are to intervene. Today should have been a significant show of force by the Capitol Police, and it didn't happen. Ultimately, I believe they were only brought in after Trump felt they had made their point, and only then. I don't think he gives a shit that a woman got shot. I don't think he gives a shit about the destruction to property or the breach of security. None of it. None of it. None of it. He got what he wanted. A demonstration, a passion for his supremacy that he so eagerly grasped. The Buddha said that kind of stuff going to come back kicking your teeth. It's called karma. I don't know what's going to happen with Trump. I don't care what's going to happen with Trump too much. Anyways, it's time to wrap it up, isn't it? I apologize if you were trying to communicate with me and I didn't see it. For a while, the screen was going kind of fast, but I think that this is the opening salvo. I wouldn't go into a federal building for the next month or so, not to get a passport, not to bum a cigarette. I believe that federal buildings will be targeted. I believe that the FBI should be the front line of defense, has historically been the front line of defense, along with DEA, ATF. They infiltrate these organizations and they try to stop these bombings or these executions or these kidnappings before they can happen. Because once they happen, you can't really do much. I mean, we already know statistically if you've been kidnapped, you're not going to be found alive. You have to prophylactically operate in the arena of hate groups. And if you don't operate to cut it off before it happens, then you won't solve a lot of these crimes. Okay? So hopefully in a Biden presidency, he will allocate resources to the FBI that they've never had. They're going to need more resources than they typically have. They're on a leash too, by the way. The FBI is on a leash. You don't have to believe me. Believe me when I tell you that Trump has done everything he can to bring the FBI down to a sitting position and prevent them from functioning effectively amongst white supremacy groups. It's absolutely critical to our security that the FBI be unleashed and be able to infiltrate and identify the violence before it happens. That's when you will see a true diminution in the threat level. I'm not saying that anything for sure is going to happen, but if you think right now, and I mean right this freaking second, that there are not several hate groups sitting there chatting away about getting ammonium nitrate and filling a truck, well, you and me ain't on the same page. Hey, Bernadette. Hey, well, I'm going to do metta. That's loving kindness. Some of you may think, can he really do metta after ranting and raving? Yeah. I'm a multifaceted individual. I can even send metta to Trump. It won't do any good. I believe that. I don't believe what Martin Luther King said, that you can only fight hate with love. You can only drive out hate. You only drive out the darkness with the light of love. I don't necessarily think that's true. I've met people who, as a result of their psychopathic propensities, we were unable to break through to them in a meaningful way with any kind of intervention, kindness, compassion, whatever it was. Because by the time we recognized their psychoses, or their psychopathology, I should say, that they couldn't be controlled. You know, any of you who've ever worked with prisoners in a correctional institution, you know that some of these guys are impervious to kindness. Doesn't mean I won't send it. I'm just saying, I believe the President of the United States is in fact a psychopath, and I believe his heart is black, and I don't believe that all the loving kindness, compassion, goodwill I send him will do a bit of good, but I do it for me. I practice metta for me. So, if you're still with me, well, thank you, Lisa and Tony, Joan and Bernadette and everybody. Let's just do a little bit of like prayer, reflection. May I be happy, healthy, free from harm. May I be free from anger, anxiety, and fear. May this practice of ours lead to greater peace and comfort. Having infused ourselves with metta, let us now send metta to our parents, wherever they may be, to our living family members, to all our friends. May they be happy, healthy, and free from harm. May they too find the path that leads them to life of comfort and peace. May those persons I find difficult, whatever hostilities, ill will, or resentment I may harbor, for just a moment I can let them go and truly send out compassion and goodwill. May those persons be happy, healthy, and free from harm. May they too be living lives, carefree and joyous. And can all living beings be the recipient of our collective radiance of compassion, so that all living beings, humans and non-humans, wherever they may be safe, happy, and healthy. May all living beings live their lives in safety, comfort, and peace. Satu, Satu, Satu. Yeah, thanks, Mark. It was a hell of a day. And like most of you, I was kind of glued to my TV set there for a while. Yeah, again, thanks, Joan and Rose and Kathy, Lisa, Tony, Bernadette, if you stuck around, I hope so, Ann and Louise and, Becky and Chris and, if I didn't say Leonard, I forgot. Anyways, I don't know who all got here today. Debbie, thank you. Debbie and Ginny, I hope Ginny stuck around. I hope Rachel stuck around. I hope y'all enjoyed this. Not enjoyed it. I hope it was illuminating, because that was the point. What happened today was the necessary illumination of a situation that we needed to recognize, and we need to be present for, and we need to be vigilant about. Thank you. Oh, thank you, Lisa. I didn't know you were there. Hi. Oh, Bernadette, I'm glad you stuck around. Well, I'll be back tomorrow. I don't know if anybody else will, but this is where I am at 6 p.m. Okay, sayonara. Yeah, I didn't even get to Georgia winning, did I? That's a crazy day when you can't mention the Democrats taking the Senate. All right. Bye, Debbie and Rachel. Yeah, Georgia. Thank you. Bye, guys.